25 Temple. I'm going to do a commentary for the key we did the other day. The only difference from this time is our tank was out of town and wasn't able to do keys on the last day that we were doing them with. So we tried to find a pug tank. Um, Luckily, we found Yoda, which I believe it is the same Yoda that does like MDI stuff, but could be wrong. He was on his pally. Yeah, we have a 25 temple that we're going to do. Obviously, same group otherwise. Disc Priest, Feral Druid, and then our Warrior. Here is my temple, my talents for this key. The only main difference for temple that you're going to be taking is you take remove curse instead of spell steal, because there's nothing in this key to actually spell steal that's beneficial. And then you're going to be taking Dragon's Breath in this key. And that's just because basically the casts in this key are a lot more detrimental. Both the interruptible cast and the non-interruptible casts are a lot more detrimental to your group than in other keys. And there's also you also won't get a whole lot of value from time manipulation with Ice Nova, other than the little haunting shots that occur, and then the very last pull of the key. And then obviously on Tyrannical Week, you're running the typical Tyrannical build. You're running Winter Tide, Slick Ice, and Splintering Cold, which obviously that's no real changes to that. But yeah. I think we don't start it for a bit. Yoink. Okay. I am running Corrupting Rage for this key. The Corrupting Rage file, the one that gives me a lot of crit, as well as the Buzzing Rune. And this first pull is a Lust pull. Or I'm lusting. One real downside is this is really an ass pull for Frost Mages. Because one, as a ranged, you actually need to be LOSing the Tainted Ripples. And at the same time, the fact that it's on like a downward slanted hill on the stairs is really bad for us to actually be able to cast Blizzard in the spot that we want it to. And then also this, I'm glad I paused on a spot that I died. Let's just roll that back like 1 second. So I basically, in like a 2-second span, let's see, this Hydro Lance is going off. I'm currently at 77% health. So this is rather unfortunate because, well, all of us are relatively low at this point. But I get Hydro Lanced, which drops me to 28% health. So it's a fatal 50% Hydro Lance, followed immediately by all of these splashes that are going off at the same time. And so I just insta-die, which is rather unfortunate. Obviously, there is some counterplay to that, which is like knowing who the Hydro Lance is being casted on, which, you know, would be done by Plater, but, you know, I don't have Plater, Smile. So I basically kind of get cucked for this first whole area because me dying means that I lose Icy Veins. So as you can see now, we are 40 seconds into this, and I don't have Icy Veins for 2 minutes. Which obviously it's a little less than 2 minutes because I get CDR back from crits, but you know, it's not a fun time. Luckily, I do have my own Lust, so I use Temporal Warp here, which I typically use on the next pull. But yeah, this was not enjoyable for me as a Frost Mage, because as you see, I'm doing tank dam. And as you guys know, as Frost Mage, it is horrific to go into a pull and not have Icy Veins, due to how much our class actually depends on, you know, fast spells and having our Rune of Power. Because now, after this pull, I am now doing less than tank. Oh, just kidding. I tapped the tank. Yay me. And now this pull, we basically said the tank is going to be solo kicking Skull, so he'll get all the kicks on Skull. and everyone else is kind of just kicking on X, and then I'm backup. You can use defensives for Tainted Ripple, so for me, I actually used, I used Alter Time to alter just the original damage from Tainted Ripple. I could have saved it obviously a little bit and done it to alter like 1 or 2 casts of it, but normally our healer is also healing me up at that time. So I just kind of want them to know in advance that I had alter running, because this key also not normally done, but we were no calming in this key. We didn't have comms at all. Which, you know, I don't really care because I'm used to no comms. But yeah, we did not have comms in this 25 temple. So as a mage, I typically like sitting. This is a little unlucky. In 2 reasons. Well, like 3 reasons. Basically, no matter what, no matter where you're standing on the platforms, I think it makes it so that no matter what, you'll always be able to get, if like whenever he starts his cast, if you're standing here, you'll always be able to run to the next one before the 3rd thing goes off. Well, after the 3rd thing goes off, because when you see, I'll go over it again. So the water happens every 3, so that's 1, 2, 3, and then 4. It went off. You should be able to run from here to here safely, no matter, even if the wash away was like right here, you'd be able to run there. The only downside is we placed the Corrupted Vortex, which is the big AoE damage that does to you, right here, so I couldn't run here. And then we also have a Storming, which is on this one. So I couldn't even run forward either, because I would have gotten hit by Storming. So I kind of just had to Ice Block, which happens. But I typically don't like Ice blocking on this. I like saving it for very bad cases. But it happens. So this is my game plan for every time I get Corrupted Vortex. Especially when I'm standing in this corner, which is the reason I like this corner. I alter time when I first get it, when I'm out here in normal and safe. I will barrier, and I run all the way to this back corner, which obviously you can't tell where I am right now. But when I alter time back, if you can see it, there's a little crevice back here. If I rewind to the spot, you can see it. Yeah, here. There's this little crevice. This actually is on both sides, by the way. But this little crevice, if you alter time and bring your thing all the way back in the corner, there's room that you can place another one, like right here. And so you have enough room to actually place 2 Corrupted Vortexes in the same spot. Basically, completely out of, like, being in anyone's way. You could also do it over on the side by the back door, but I'm just not a huge fan of that back door. But we also, the way that I can tell who Hydrolance is going on, especially because we have a warrior, we're trying to let the Hydrolances go off on the warrior because they have Spell Reflect. And they can actually do damage with the Hydrolance going on them. So the only way that I can actually tell, because I don't have Plater, or it tells me who's casted on, is I have to pay attention to which way the boss is facing. So I prefer people to be like spread out. So you'll see sometimes in this fight when I'm like stacked, like I'm here and someone's here, you'll see I either move to a different spot or I hope that they do, because that's the only way I can tell who it's casted on. It is a little sus doing what I do here. I would not recommend, because there you will die, and I do die a lot more than I would like to say. But the way that I've gotten around dealing with Wash Away as a mage is you can just blink it. Normally you can just, you know, alter time it, or just actually follow the mechanic, but I don't like following the mechanic because mechanics are for losers, so I just blink it. When it's going from right to left, so going clockwise, I like, you can stand here and you can blink down towards the steps. I would not recommend trying to blink like straight this way, because For some reason, it's really buggy with the little drop downs that happen with the water, and also buggy because this drop down, how this is like a ramp that goes down. So I'd make it so that you're blinking. Make sure you're blinking to spots that's like down here on the stairs, like I just did. If you do end up doing that, which I wouldn't entirely recommend, but it's definitely useful to know you can do it. And obviously just doing single target rotation. Since it is M+, and you're not running Frozen Touch, the new rotation that was found isn't actually a DPS increase at all. So just do your standard rotation, the flurry, using your Fingers of Frost procs, and using your Frostbolt into flurry into 2 Ice Lances. The new rotation is actually only beneficial with if you're running Frozen Touch. So. Here, unfortunate, all 3 of us interrupted at the exact same time, so now we just don't have interrupts with these next few. But you see, I noticed that Hydrolance was going on a warrior because the boss turned this way and he was the only one in that direction, so I knew his spell reflect was going to happen. Going right to left, I typically like better than left to right. So going counterclockwise for the wash away. Because this whole safe area back here, if you blink from like here to over there, it's typically safer. But again, just be very careful with doing that because I have died more than I would like to share. Also, I need to get Spotify going. Where's my Spotify? That's not Spotify. That's Spotify. I realized I had my Spotify off on the other ones because it was my Mythic Razkill, which I had sound on, but these ones I didn't have sound on, so whoops. Now here, you need to be very careful running the Corrupting Rage file, because there's a chance it just randomly causes a bleeding effect on you. And if the bleeding effect happens when you're invising, it takes you out of invis, and you just, die and wipe the group file. So, like I said, our plan was the tank gets Skull interrupts, everybody, the other people get X, and then I get Diamond, which I wasn't entirely sure for this pull because the Talking Fish cast happens a lot more than the other 2 casts, and so I actually just don't have the kicks for Talking Fish because he also just doesn't get stunned and he doesn't get blast waved, or at least I know he doesn't get DB'd. So yeah. When the bleeding effect happens from the crit file, I'll show you guys. Okay, so on Fortified, it's a lot more of an issue. This is an issue somewhat on Raging, because Raging is basically the same as Fortified in terms of these little guys. These little guys, the Shahs that explode, the lesser Shahs, actually do Rage, so they have the increased damage from exploding. Use defensives for them, at least the ones that aren't spawned by the big Shah, the Shambling Infester. Any of the ones that are originally out in the dungeon are the ones that do it. The ones that get spawned don't rage. And I'm typing here, our plan, at least for our normal push group, is we Hodge the first barrier, and then I'm the next two interrupts with both DB and Blast Wave. And then it's basically just free-for-all after that, because it should be dead by it should be dead after the fourth one, so as long as somebody gets one additional interrupt, it's basically fine. Obviously on fortified weeks, it's typically like 5 interrupts, so that's something we'll have to actually plan, because right now we only have 3 planned. But so we're all focusing the beetle because that's the most important thing. Our tank dodges it, just done the barrier cast. Luckily, normally it seems like he will cast a staggering blow afterwards, and instead of just going right into a golden barrier here, or he normally doesn't do that. He normally just goes right into a golden barrier cast. But this time he did a staggering blow. So I Dragon's Breath this one to interrupt him, and then I'm a Blast Wave for the next one to interrupt, and then he's dead. So we actually only needed 3 interrupts on the Tyrannical Key, so it ended up working out that we Hodge into Dragon's Breath into Blast Wave. I also don't know how our priest took no damage from an enraged leap, but we won't worry about that. Now this boss kind of sucks ass for Frost, and the fact that we can't actually cleave, because our Ice Lances and Icicles both actually trigger the stacks spreading. So does our Frozen Orb, and so does our Blizzard. I'm actually wondering if... No, I definitely can't do it. So, what we ended up changing on this is our Warrior has ended up swapping damage, and swapping as soon as, like, he'll be hitting both of them. So, like, when we're attacking this one, he'll be hitting this one until this one gets to, like, 4 stacks, and then he'll stop hitting this one, so that this one's stacks will drop off by the time that we actually swap to him. I'm wondering if I'm able to fit in Blizzards at all in there, but I'm pretty sure I won't be able to. So unfortunately for me, this is kind of just like a pure single target fight, but at the same time, I lose value on Winter's Chill if I have to swap at all with Winter's Chill going. But yeah, I would also say for this one, the way you throw your Frozen Orb as a Frost Mage is you have to throw it the second you swap targets. So you see we swap targets and I immediately throw my Frozen Orb. If you throw it any sooner, it actually will end up immuning the mobs. And it still does, it like hits it, you see it basically disappeared at 6 stacks. I do the same thing with Shifting Power. If I ever end up shifting power, when I hit the mob, either this mob I run all the way to this corner in shifting power, or this mob I'll go up on this high ground in shifting power to make sure that shifting power actually doesn't hit both adds, which is a little unfortunate, but... As you see, I'm doing it here. Yeah, I also never get the buff on this boss, just due to how our Druid and Warrior are able to actually do damage the entire time to both adds, and I'm not. The only time I might ask for buff is if we lust that, and I can get double lust with both runes going. This is the main thing that I need to be aware of in this poll, is these Mistweavers, the ones that cast Defiling Mist, are the one mobs that do the curse in this dungeon. So it's the one time that I need to actually be paying attention to either other people or my my party frames. I typically just pay attention to my party frames, but this is the debuff that shows up, that little circle that was on my screen. That's something that needs to be dispelled. Now, we did decide to lust this poll because after this, you only get 3 lusts in this key, and so your lusts are typically... It's typically like first pull because you do a double Ellie pull, and then after that, it's either that second boss or the pull after the second boss, and then it's either the last boss or the pack before the last boss, depending on what kind of week it is. If it's a fort week, you do the pack before the last boss. If it's tyrannical, you do the last boss. So here we do a double pull with the Shambling Infestor in the middle. Luckily for me, this is when I also have my double lust, so this is great. The one thing you need to be aware of, which actually ends up killing two of us here, it doesn't end up killing me, but I also need to be aware of the Decurse at the same time, because this pack has a Mistweaver in it, but we need to be very aware of the Flames of Doubt. Typically, the way that I deal with it is I kind of just stay at max range. I'm staying as far away as possible. The only downside that can happen is if it's like this happens, the Shattered Resolve, which obviously, don't you love this? Don't you love how I pause the video and it's just, my entire site is just fucked by trees? But if the Shattered Resolve happens at the same time the Flame of Doubt is happening, I just need to be aware if when it's happening and which way it's facing. Which Flames of Doubt is the frontal that the Shambling Infestor casts. And I should just move backwards. But I also need to be aware of the curses, like I said, so I'm paying attention to people's frames. Now that the Mistweaver's dead, I don't need to worry about them. So you'll actually see what ends up killing the 2 people in our group here. So this is what ends up killing it. Let me rewind for like 2 seconds. So if the Shambling Infestor is actually on the stairs and he's angled, his frontal still happens, but the visual is really fucked up for it because he's basically like frontaling into the ground. So as you see, he's casting it right now, and you like can't really see it. It's right here. You saw our druid just died right here, and you see our warrior runs into it and also dies. Our healer also ran into it and got hit by one tick. So yeah. Try and not have the Shambling Infestor like angled on the stairs, because yeah. At this point, because we basically had 2 DPS dead, we did end up B-resing our druid, but because we had 2 DPS dead, I also sent my rune. I normally wouldn't have sent it at that pull, just because the mobs would have basically been dead at that time, but yeah. So our plan here is our plan is to have our paladin or to have somebody pull through the wall here. Which, in our case, we had our warrior's been using Thunderous Roar. Also, Gavel, look what happens when you instantly die. You instantly just got meleeed. Here, let's rewind that. I expected this to be successful, so I popped Icy Veins and threw my orb, and then they just ran right back through. My guess is you got crit meleeed and then they reset because no one else had hit them. Dude, when he said change plan, I swear that Yoda was gonna pull all 3 packs. I was worried. I was worried for my life. But now I'm kind of fucked now because I now only have 10 seconds of Icy Veins remaining, and I literally have like my entire cooldown. As you can see, I kind of got fucked because now I have no Icy Veins remaining because it wasted 10 seconds with our warrior dying here. And so now I just don't have it for this entire time period. I have no clue, Gavel. Another decurse that can actually happen in this, obviously on higher keys, it will just one-shot, so it doesn't actually matter. But for lower keys, that Shattered Resolve, that thing on the ground that happens, which the Haunting Shaw actually casts, if you get hit by that, it puts a decurse on you, and you can decurse it. Obviously on higher keys, getting hit by that ground ability will just one-shot you, but it's still good to know that. This is one thing that we normally typically didn't do. We typically pull this somewhat separate, and then we pull this mob after with the because since we invis the panda, the 2 pandas at the start of the key on the right hand side here, well over here, you know, where I'm pointing. You have to get 2 more mobs. You have to get so the 2 mobs that you get are on this right side in the staircase. So you end up chaining this pack. We normally end up chaining this single pack with that pack, but he seemed that he chained this pack into this pack as soon as those mobs died, like the lesser Shaws died, which I actually ended up pulling these mobs for us because I saw they were on a good pat for us. Not entirely sure how helpful that was because I get hit by something here, I'm pretty sure, and I have no clue what I get fucking hit by. Oh, was that just the Shaws exploding? Did I just get milked by the Shaws exploding? No? What did I get destroyed by here? Watch. I guess it might have been a Shaw explosion, but again, this is another Mistweaver. So the Mistweavers, you need to be aware of the ruin. So it went on me again. And now at this point, I'm not worried about the Mistweaver because I have a kick, but I mean, it's just one kick. We're obviously going to get it. I'm more worried about the tank dying to the Dark Claw that occurs from the mobs, but... I was very sus at us starting this pull with these 2 mobs still alive because Springs didn't get to drink. But I guess there's really no healing going on this time. It's just a Dispel, and then the healing all happens in P2. But I was worried because he's a Disc Priest. I'm pretty sure Disc sends a lot of their mana with offensive spells. Also, me and Springs almost cucked each other over here. You guys will see it. It happens in P2. But yeah, this fight is kind of really boring for ranged. Any ranged class that has no way to either help the tank or the healer, because we literally do nothing. All we do this entire fight is just dodge, and that's it. Like, there's nothing else going on. We can't help, especially as a mage, we can't help heal the tank in P2 in this phase right here. There's no kind of tech we can do for it. It's literally just appear single target, us slamming the entire time. This is when me and Springs almost screwed each other over. He was running over to me, and I was blinking over to him, and we kind of did it at the same time. Also, I'm not sure if it's exactly how it works, but I'm pretty positive the way this boss works is apparently, what I heard is, in P1, the rings happen from... and like an X formation from the boss, whereas in P2 they happen at a plus. Hello, Penelope. But yeah, this boss is rather boring for range. The only thing I would be aware of is don't try and put like a blizzard or something down like I did. Would not recommend, because there will be times where you just get instant meleeed because the threat table resets when this mob spawns, which for some reason I'm not sure why. But it resets, and if you put that down, you basically will just die because you might just get one meleeed. And now for this, since we didn't end up doing the pull through the wall, we didn't have that now. So we basically had to double this pack. However, the issue with doubling any of these packs in this room is every single one of these packs has a Mistweaver. And the Mistweavers are the ones that have the decurse. So the strat that we just said there is I'm going to be pulling this back right one, this one right here. And we're going to be pulling this pack with the backpack. And the reason you can do that is because there's no kicks that actually happen in this backpack, versus this pack has 3 mobs that are all casters. This mobs are just tank busters and like an AoE, like melee thing that you have to get out of. Alright, Penelope, just doing a commentary for a 25 temple we did yesterday. And so now in this group, since there is only one Mistweaver, there's only one curse happening. I am focusing the Mistweaver because it's basically the most important mob in this thing. Both the Touch of Ruin and Defiling Mist can cause wipes, or deaths, so it is the mob that I'm focusing down. At this point, we should have pulled the other Mistweaver in, at least in my opinion, just because the time save of having one mob that's that much higher health. Yoda does end up heading back to it and pulling it in. And now again, I only have one curse to have to deal with, which is beneficial. And now this kind of sucks that it's just one target, but it happens. And now on this one, again, like we talked earlier in the key, the plan is to have Tank solo kicking Skull, the other 2 DPS kicking X, and then I'm kicking Diamond or being like a backup. And so since this is a 3 caster pull, I kicked Diamond in, so that Diamond's in the group. And now I'm kind of just being aware. I'm somewhat letting Hydro Lances go through because I actually don't have enough kicks. And I'm trying to save my AoE stuns for when I see multiple casts going off at once. or when I see Tidal Burst going off from my guy when I don't have a kick. So that's saving both Blast Wave and Dragon's Breath. I am focusing my own guy because I have no way of basically getting a backup kick. Like our Druid has Incap Roar or Typhoon, our Warrior has Intimidating Shout and Stormbolt, or they can Spell Reflect any of the things other than Tidal Burst. Our healer has a backup with Psychic Scream. I kind of have no way to back up my own other than my 2 AoE stuns. So I'm kind of just being very, very careful with those. And again, we are actually running 2 curses. Our Druid's also running a D-curse. But I'm basically just taking the prio of being the main D-curse in these packs. Especially when it's only 1. So now you see I have no... I used both Blast Wave and Dragon's Breath. I could use Shifting Power, obviously, to get one of them back. I just haven't at this point. But now I have no possible way to stop my caster if it gets a cast off. I do have a Discord, yeah. It's in my About section. And now this pack is basically the pack that bricks the vast majority of temple keys. Tanks typically just fall over because the amount of things that actually go off. This pack, the Haunting Shah, is the only one that has an interruptible cast. He does the Haunting Scream, the same mob that's done it throughout the rest of the mob. The Minions of Doubt have Dark Claw, which is kind of a tank buster, and then we all know that the Shambling Infestor just has the ad spawns and then the frontals. But Haunting Shah is the only one that hurts basically everybody other than the Shahs and the frontal from this guy. So the Haunting Shah is basically the top priority. The other priority is because Haunting Shah has Dark Claw, can basically one-shot the tank. It is a Tyrannical Key, so it's not as dangerous, but it is raging. So I'm surprised we didn't have a Rage for the Haunting Shah, or a Soothe. But our Druid is our only Soothe, so I'm wondering if they're saving it for one of the Minions of Doubts for the Dark Claws. But at this point now, it's basically just... I could probably be focusing the Minions of Doubt. Okay, so this is... I mentioned this earlier, the Shattering Resolve. Let me go back a few seconds. It actually ended up as being not a one-shot, it seems like. Both our Priest and our Warrior both got hit by this ability, this ground ability. And it puts this little debuff on them. I believe it makes them take 30% increased damage or something along that lines. This is something that I could decurse. I'm not sure I actually do or not. Yeah, it doesn't look like I do because I'm not paying attention to it at this time. But I was just targeting this Infestor just because I have good prio dam. Obviously, any cleave that happens, I'm hoping cleaves off to the other guys, but this mob is the most important one in this pack. And now we're getting to the boss, which is basically, I will probably say one of the hardest bosses this tier. If not the hardest. It kind of almost requires either a Priest or a Warlock. Either one of the two. Obviously both are great because the Warlock is able to help dispel, but the Priest has Mass Dispel. If you don't have one of those two, you basically need classes with like insane defensives. So our plan for this is our Warrior is basically saving CDs for every single intermission. Which helps because it means that me and the Pharaoh can basically just go full-fledged into the boss. Otherwise, intermission is a very hard part in a Tyrannical Key. I also recommended us changing... One thing that we ended up changing on this boss, I'll get into it when it gets to the first intermission. So what happens here, when you have a Priest in your group, you typically Mass Dispel the first, second, fourth, sixth, so on and so forth. You do every other one other than the first and the second, because the first and the second line up to having an intermission in it. So the intermission gives enough time for Mass Dispel to actually come back off cooldown. And now for Bounds of Reality, you want to stack up. We stack up here, and this way our mobs will actually all spawn in the same spot. Eyes, I need to have words with you, because every time we got to the intermission, you sent your mob to the middle of nowhere. Every single time. Literally, you're stacked here fine with us. And then for some godforsaken reason, you turn your character sideways. You did it every intermission. Every single intermission. I have no clue what you were doing. But now, the strat that I told us to change to, which we did end up changing, is we normally vortexed right on the pull, and so it would stop the first melee from happening. But what ended up happening is the first vortex would pull him back, and then obviously you can only get vortexed. I think you only can get vortexed once. I'm not really positive. But it would basically end up, the mobs would end up getting away from the vortex and chasing. It would typically be Springs and I, our two ranged players. So I ended up telling us to do vortex later than normal, and not actually vortex their spawning, but vortex when they start chasing. Because that allows us, what happens is you see the mobs are actually starting to run back into the vortex, and we're basically able to run away and not get meleeed at all. So that kind of just the delaying of vortex allows us to actually get the range and then do the damage, and then once they're running at us, they'll get pulled back into the vortex. So yeah, I think when you saw that, the vortex is down right now, so you saw the druid one just get pulled back, Ice Nova, they're chasing, pulled back. It basically just gives a little more leeway for ranged players in order to get away at the start, and then have their mobs get in later on. In terms of defensives for this, you typically want to just be having your defensive rollings at all times, especially Mirror Image, because you're going to be getting trucked by his random mobs, his random throws that go out. I have no defensive in that one hit. I have no barrier right now, and it just hit me for 36%, and now knocked me to 64%. They kind of just truck. The other defensives you have are Alter Time and G-Invis, and then you also have blocks. I'm saving blocks, and because when we get later in the fight, our healer's most likely going to be low on mana, and won't have the mana to Mass Dispel, or they just might not have the mana to heal, in which case they're going to dispel one player, and then I have to Ice Block the other one. Because Ice Block actually gets rid of the Touch of Nothingness. At this point, you see they dispel their Druid, and then the Warrior just lives through it, because for some godforsaken reason, Warriors and Pharaohs are just unkillable classes. But again, this was a Mass Dispel, so I didn't have to worry about defensives there. And now I get my own personal lust here, because we lusted first intermission. And now we get Bounds of Reality. So this is again a stack up angle. And for some godforsaken reason again, our druids just facing their ass the wrong direction. And you see their ad spawn. Their ad spawns over here. But again, a late vortex. So me and our healer are able to run away, and the mobs just all get vortexed back in that spot. The one thing that I am doing, it's somewhat, I would say it's worth it doing. While our warrior is holding CDs for every single intermission, I'm holding a rune of some sort, and I'm always holding Frozen Orb. So in this one, I don't have rune up, but I have Icy Veins coming up. So I have Icy Veins, and then I'll have Frozen Orb here within like 2 seconds. I literally always pre-cast a Blizzard for every intermission, so it actually hits the mobs while they're flying back and as soon as they land. But now that I have Frozen Orb out and I have Rune going, I have another Blizzard going, and then I Ice Nova. I'm able to freeze them. I'm able to get all the damage with my with my Rune of Power out. And obviously this orb still does damage to the boss, but this is what I was talking about. So our priest was calling block for this one. It actually didn't go on me. It went on our druid and our warrior. But morning, Mom. Again, it does kind of feel bad because I'm holding. See, do seem to be holding on to orb for this long. But the upside is I get all of the orb damage plus rune in every single intermission, which obviously intermission is a pretty heavy damage because he's obviously throwing out all of his random abilities during intermission, and then the random melees that can happen. This was the one time that our druid actually was in the right spot, but our healer got storming, and so their ad was in a shitty spot, so it was just, we always had one person always just fuck up every intermission, but it was okay. Again, I got somewhat lucky. I'm not sure. I feel like normally, our priest chooses themselves and myself to dispel unless I have ice block. I think they should have picked dispelling themselves in this case because the druid has defensives to actually get through. But yeah. Again, that was another master spell. I'm using rune here because I know that I have Icy Veins coming up for the next intermission. But you see that also trucks. And again, now we group up. That was our first intermission where all ads were actually in the correct spot. And I got storming, and I got melee because of it. But you saw that the vortex actually bring them back, which was helpful. But yeah, other than that, it's obviously just full single target. I'm sending all my cooldowns other than orb and the rune, unless I have some sort of rune for intermission. I ended up only needing one ice block in that whole thing. But yeah, that was the 25 temple. It's obviously a I didn't do great overall, but obviously as a frost mage, sometimes we're just not gonna have great overall, especially on tyrannical weeks. These are typically a very good single target class. And I'm kind of our group's priority single target guy. So it just so happens that I have to do that. But yeah, that was a 25 temple. We've probably failed this 25 temple probably like 8 times. Not our finest key. This and Hall seems to be the key that stumps us the most, but we ended up timing it now. And this was the key that put basically all of us at 3300 IO. So, but yeah, that's all for the 25 temple commentary.